Hello everyone, today we are going to learn how to create authentication here in Flutterflow, the login and the register functions here in Flutterflow using Firebase, of course, right? This is pretty simple and it's very necessary to apply to some kinds of applications that you are going to create here in Flutterflow in order to have security and in order to have control of what users are doing, what users are accessing in your app. So let's jump right into it. Book a call with us to find out more about our no-code bootcamp or how we can help you automate your business. Click in the description below. First of all, guys, when you create a blank project here in Flutterflow, you are going to set up Firebase. Okay, for this project, I expect you guys to have your Firebase already set up. It is pretty simple. Once you create your project, you are going to have if you don't set up in the first instructions that Flutterflow gives to you, you can actually come to settings, Firebase, and you can actually create a project in here. You are going to enter an account, a Google account, to create your project. Flutterflow is going to do all of the work for you. Once you created the project, you are going to generate the config files in here. Even though you have Firebase already connected to Flutterflow, you need to do some settings first before creating the authentication, okay? If you guys open Firebase console, you guys are going to be redirected to this page here of Firebase, okay? console.firebase.google.com. You guys can select your project. In here, in this case, I just named login register video, right? And in here, you have a lot of different options from database, from storage, hosting, authentication, Cloudflare Store. You can actually link Google Analytics in here as well. But we are going to click here in authentication just to start the setting up in order to use, in order to work properly. Once you clicked in authentication, you can configure the login method, right? And in this case, you are going to use an email and password method of logging in, right? In the future, you can actually add a lot of different kinds of authentication, Google, Facebook, Play Games, GitHub, authentication, Microsoft, smartphone, and all of those different kinds of authentication. For this video, we are going to use email and password. Now we're going to activate. We are not going to activate logging in without a password. Let's save. And now we are already set. Okay, email and password activated. In here, in advanced settings, in the future, you can actually activate the two-factor authentication, but we're not going to mess with this in this video. Once you have already done this, here in users, you have a list of users of accounts created in your application. The same way that you can actually add a new user manually in here. But after this setup, we are already set, kind of already set, to start building our logic there in Flutterflow. First of all, let's start building our login front end, right? The first visual of our login. We have actually an email and a password. In Firebase, when you use authentication using email and password, we're going to have three different visual data, which is full name, email, and password. In order for our user to be able to authenticate, to log in our app, we are going to use just email and login. So let's create those visuals in here, and then we're going to create the back end of this application. So in here in the home page, right away the home page is going to be my login page. Usually this is not how it works, right? But you can actually create a home page. Usually that's not how it works, right? You have a home page, you redirect the person to the login page, for example. But to keep it simple, we're going to create our visuals here in the home page. Then create a container in here. I'm going to center this container. The width, let's set to infinite, and the height, let's set to 300, 400, for example. Okay, let's give a padding in here, in the left and right. And now I'm going to give a border radius in here of 20 to give a little rounded corner to our square. And I'm going to give as well a box shadow to give a little bit of a contrast with our background, right? The X, I'm going to give 3, for example, 4 in here. Let's see, now we have a little box shadow to give that contrast with the background. I'm going just to reduce this border radius to 10, and that's a good amount, I think. Okay, inside of this container we are going to create our login information. So let's say a title, login, a subtitle, let's say authenticate user, and then we're going to create 2 text spaces in order to have an email and a password. So let's create this structure. I'm going to create a column structure in here, right? We are going to create a text as well. Let's give the name of this text login. Okay, I'm going to make this text a little bit larger, just like that, can be. Then I'm going to create a subtitle. Let's make this subtitle as a label. For example, we're going to give the subtitle as authentication user. Let's give the subtitle user authentication, for example. And now we're going to create the two fields in order to put the email and the password and a button to the person actually log in. Right here in the column, I'm going to give this kind of space evenly actually, right? And now let's create our text field. Okay, let's search for text field in here, which is a form element. It has to be this kind of element. Okay, text field. It's actually an input field, and it's the only one that we have to use in order to link to populate in the right place of password and email after all, right? Let's create this text field. In here, it's the pattern, right? We're going to give, let's say, the full width, and now let's give just a padding, so it's not like glued to the wall of our square. I'm not going to set a label in here, okay? I'm going just to change the hint text in here. Instead of text field, I'm going to set to email, just to be clear to the person that, okay, this input, you have to type your email. I'm going to increase the border radius for 15, for example. I'm going to set the background for a darker color, okay, a little bit darker, just enough to the user to recognize this is a square, an input rectangle, okay. Now we have an input in here for email, for example, okay. In here we have a lot of different additional properties to set a password as password field, for example. I'm just going to open the icon properties in here, and I'm going to give an icon in the beginning of my input. Let's type in here email. We have those pre-made icons, those available icons from Flutterflow itself, right? Now we have our icon. I'm just going to keep the same color for the icon, okay? And that's it for our input. We can now actually duplicate this text field, and now let's set the same text field, but instead of email, we are going to set this field as password. I'm going to change the icon as well, because this icon doesn't fit anymore. Let's choose a locker, for example. I'm going to use this first one, can be password, and I'm going to set password field in here. Now we have already set the basics of our login page. I'm just going to create now a button to finish this configuration down here. Let's search for button. Okay, we have a button in here. I'm going to set the width for the same thing as well, okay, 100%, and let's give 20 of padding for each left and right corner, okay, and this button is going to be sign in, okay. Now we have everything that we actually need set in here. I'm just going to change the spacing because it's a little weird, right? I'm going to centralize everything but give an item spacing of 20, for example. Yes, can be, okay. Okay, it's not like the best design that we are creating in here, but let's keep in mind that we are actually teaching how to create a whole authentication. Alright guys, the front end part is very simple, right? Now we're going to create the logic, the back end for this login. Before we create the register, we're going to test this login. Okay, we're going to create the back end now, and then we're going to create a fake user in Firebase database, and we're going to test if we are able to log in or if we're not able to log in. Okay, so first of all, we are going to give this email and password fields a name. Okay, as you guys can see, we have the default text field name for both of them. We are not like separating those fields by the right name or a different name, for example. In here, we can actually set a different name. Let's say user email. Okay, this is going to be my variable. Okay, the name for my email field. And in this one, let's give user password. Right, now we have named those two fields. And now the magic is here in the button. Okay, the button is the only trigger that is going to check if, okay, this information matches with the information of a user in the database, in the Firebase database. Okay, this user can be authenticated, this user can actually log into my app, right? This is actually the trigger, right? So in here we are going to actually set an action. Let's add this action. In here, instead of navigating or these kinds of things, we are going to set in here to backend database. And as you guys can see, we have in here Firestore, okay? But it's not Firestore that we are using to authenticate things. It's actually Firebase. And that's where another part of our setup comes in. If we click here in settings, instead of Firebase, we click in authentication. We have to enable authentication in here for our app. And in here, authentication type, we have to set the type of authentication, Firebase in this case, okay? Okay, in here we have entry page. The entry page is the first page of your app. Once the person opens your app, this is going to be the first page. There are a lot of apps that requires the person to authenticate first before using the app, but that's not our case. So I'm not going to set an entry page for now. And the logged in page, which is the page that we're going to direct the person after the person logged in. In this case, it's going to be this logged in page that I just created before the video, right? Which is just this page in here with this image. Let me wait. With top secret confidential in this case, but in this case can be your home page or the page with the user's information, the way that you want to create your logic, right? But once you configure in here and enable the authentication and set this to Firebase, let's come back in here to our login button, signing button actually. And actually I just misunderstood. This is not like sign in, right? It's log in. Okay. Sorry for this mess in here. Okay, login button. We're going to select this one. Instead of navigate backend in database, Firebase authentication. In this case, this option just appeared in here to us after enable the authentication there in the configuration. And in here we are going to use login authentication. Okay, so authenticate login. Authentication provider is email, right? We're not going to use any of these other methods that we have there in database as well. So we are going to choose email, and in here we have the tricky part, not the tricky part, but the mystery between the logic for this authentication, which is the email field and password field. And we're going to set, as you guys can see, we set this field from a text field or from a variable as well. We can actually choose in here user email that we just set there, okay? And in here user password. You guys can see that Flutterflow itself just recognized, okay, we have user password, so this means this is a password, okay? In here we can navigate automatically. If you keep this enabled, this page, the page that we just set in there to redirect the person once the person is authenticated, is going to be the page that the person is going to be automatically directed. Okay. In this case, we have already set our login in form front end and back end. Okay. The way that we can test this is just entering here in the console from Firebase authentication. Okay. In users, you can actually add a new user with email and password. I'm going to give an example for email. Let's say leo.com. Okay, and password I'm going to give 1234. Okay, let's add user. Okay, it has to be at least 6 characters. Let's give 1234 5 actually 6. Okay, let's add this user. As you guys can see, we have a new user here in our Firebase database. We have actually an ID as well. If you guys want, you can actually disable the account, redefine the password, or delete this account. But let's test now this email. I'm going to run this app for now. Let me just check this problem in here. Okay, project has authentication, but entry page is not specified. Okay, since we have this problem, I'm going to set my entry page to my home page actually, which is my login page for now. Everything's set. We shouldn't have any issue anymore. Let's test our app here in test mode to see if it's actually working. Alright, with our test mode opened in here, we can actually test our email and password. As you guys can see, we have this pre-made hover for our icons. Okay, if I put anything here, for example, leo.com, and the right password, for example, 123456, and I try to log in, it's going to say to us that the supplied authentication credential is incorrect, okay, or expired, for example, because it doesn't match any of the users we have set here in our authentication list, okay, or any of this information of these users is not actually registered in our database. If I remove this one in the middle, now we have the right credentials, okay. If I try to log in, we should be redirected to the logged in page that I just set in there. And as you guys can see, we just reached the other page, the users page that I just created, which is the page that when the user is authenticated, it automatically redirects the person to this page. And as you guys can see, in authenticated user, we have here the current user email, is user logged in, true, okay, user ID, and these kinds of things, display name, photo, and phone number we didn't set. But that's it, it's actually working. So now how can we actually create the register? It's actually the same thing, pretty much the same thing. We have just to create the visuals and then assigning, instead of creating an authentication for logging in, we're going to create an authentication to create an account. Okay, so let's see how can we do this. In here I'm going to create a blank page. Again, I'm going to give register. Okay, created a blank page, just gave the name register. I'm going to give in here as well, register. right, I'm just going to copy the same structure that I used in here. That's not, there's no reason why I shouldn't do this, okay? Okay, now we can actually change, instead of login, let's give the name register, user authentication as well, right? So let's just duplicate this for now. This one, it's not going to be email, this one is going to be name, for example, okay? I'm just going to change the icon in here as well, icon properties. I'm going to give person in here. As you can see, we have this little person. This is a good name for icon. Email and password, the same thing as before. And now let's give sign up in here, okay? We have sign up, okay? We have now the front end for the registration form in here. Register, we need a name, an email, and a password in order to register this person to our database. Here in the sign up button, just like we did for logging in, we are going to change the action. Instead of authenticating the user for logging in, we are going to actually change this to Firebase authentication, and we are going to change this to create account. Okay, let's change to create account, and as you guys can see, we have those informations in here. We have the authentication provider, which is email. Again, we have the email field, password field, and confirm password field. I just misunderstood. We don't actually necessarily need a name in here to create the user, okay? But it's very good for you to create a name. In those cases, you are not going to store to authenticate this by the email field and password field here in the action of authenticating. You are going to create a variable, just like we can see in here. We can use text fields and variables. Right, you're going to create a variable with the name of the person. A name is very important in cases that you are going to display the name of the person. For example, the person is authenticated, you're going to display in the home page, hello Leo, hello Giovanna, for example. This is a good way of using a name. Or if you have a profile page in which the person can edit the name. If you have an e-commerce, this is something very important as well. Right, in this case, I'm not going to use this for now, but if you want to use, you can actually create a parameter, a variable with this name, and after all, you can actually display this name from this variable that is actually saved in your app. For now, I'm going to erase this as name, right? And here in this sign up, we're going to keep email field as user email. Okay, I'm just going to change this for register email and register password, okay? Just to keep a little different from our login form. Okay, let's create an action. Again, here we have the same action. Let's change the email field to register email and register password. It just populated automatically in here for us. Now I'm just going to create a confirmation form, a password field. Let me duplicate this one, and let me change the title of this one to confirm password, for example. Okay, confirm, oh my god, confirm password, right? And now in the action, let's set this confirm password to, let me set to confirm register password, and here we can actually choose this one, confirm register password, and we are already set to create a new user. And that's how we can actually sign up in here and then logging in the other page. In this case, here in the home page, the same way that I have a button to log in, I'm going to have a button. Let me delete this action as well from this button, and I'm going to have this button for signing up. Okay, let's set this button to black, for example, and instead of logging in, sign up. Okay, in this way we have two buttons. This button is going to redirect the person to register, and here in register the person can actually sign up in the same way that we did for the sign in page. We're going to add a button in here with the fill color, with a black fill color as well, and let's give sign in. Okay, and let's give log in. Okay, I'm just mixing the sign in, log in names in my head, but that's it for now. Okay, now I just have to create the actions. Sign up, I want to navigate, if I click right, I want to navigate to the register page. Okay, if I'm on the register page and I just forgot that I already have an account, and I'm going to go back to the login page, I'm going to the home page in this case. And if I am logged in, if I'm authenticated, I'm going to the login in page as well. Okay, in this case, in this sign up, we are going to navigate automatically as well to the first page when the person is authenticated, but you don't have to do this, okay? There's a lot of apps that once you have already signed up, you are redirected to the login page and then you log in with the account that you just created. But we are going to keep it simple for now. But of course, you can actually change the action flow in here and create anything else. So if the user click this button and is authenticated is equals to true, then you are going to redirect the person to the login page. For example, if is authenticated is not true, then you are going to redirect to other page or give a message of error, for example. Okay, so that's it for logging in and register in the basics for this here in Flutterflow using Firebase. Now let's test our app again and see if we are being able to register new users to our database. Okay guys, here in our test environment, now we have our app, login and registered, pretty much all done. Okay, and here we have login. I just showed you guys that we can actually log in using these credentials, for example, that I just created in here as a new user. But let's see now if our register is working. Let's click here and sign up. We are redirected to the register page. Let me set a mail in here, for example, giovanna.g.com. Okay, 123456 as well as password to keep it simple. Let's confirm the password. As you guys can see, is the same thing. Okay, and let's create this account and let's see. Actually, we are redirected to the users page. Just like I told you guys can actually make manipulate the actions in order to lead the user to the login page again, in order for the user to log in after register. But in this case, once we register, the user is actually redirected directly to the user's page, and the user is actually logged in directly. Okay, so user logged in through the email giovanna.g.com. Okay, and as you guys can see, if we come here to Firebase and we update this list of users, you guys can see that we have a new user in here, giovanna.g.com, that was created today in here in our application. We can actually change password, we can actually delete this user, for example, but in this case we are actually logged in here. I just added this logout button as well. This logout button works the same way that everything works with the authentication action, but instead of logging in or creating an account, we are going to use an action of logging out. Once we log out and we set the navigate automatically, it's going to lead us to the first page of our app, which in this case is the home page. If you click in here, we are directed to the home page. If I try to log in with a wrong email, for example, and a wrong password, something that is not even an email, and try to log in, we're going to see that it's going to give the email address is badly formatted. For example, if I set a wrong email but with the format of an email, it's going to give us that the authentication is not working, we don't have this user in our database. So that's it, how you can create, login and register in your application. This is actually the simple way. Just like I told you guys, you can add phone number, for example, logging in using Google, logging in using GitHub, depending on your app, what you want your users to give as data to the register form of your app. And you're going to use the Firebase and the Flutterflow to manage all of this. Just like you guys saw, we didn't use any kind of code to create all of this. If you want to code this actually using a language, you're going to waste much more, not waste, but you're going to use much more time to make it work. That's why Flutterflow is pretty good handed, right? That's it for the video today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any doubts, you can comment here below in the video, give us a like, subscribe to Doris Coding School, and keep tuned because we're going to have a lot of different other videos about Flutterflow, about no code, with more advanced and simple concepts here in the channel. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye bye. Book a call with us to find out more about our no code bootcamp or how we can help you automate your business. Click in the description below.